This video recaps our trip to Alaska's Kenai Peninsula. Please watch our other 6 videos on each of these locations, which will help you plan your trip. These videos can be found on our homepage, and enjoy the fabulous scenes.
Hello YouTube, I'm Dan.
And I'm Deb.
And together we are
D2 Destinations.
We just got back from our trip from Alaska, and we thought we would go over some highlights. So if you're planning a trip to go this coming summer like we did, we were there in late July, first week of August. We have a couple things you might want to know. First of all, we rented an RV for a full week. Now, keep in mind, she's never been camping before. So it was a leap of faith on both of our parts. And it turned out really great though. She was fine. We rented ours from the Great Alaskan Holidays out of Anchorage, where we flew into, and our host couple, their friends that live up there, they gave us a rough itinerary. So we're going to share that with you. We left down the Turn Again Arm highway, and along the way, one of the first stops, if you want to hit it on the way down, is the Girdwood gondola. That particular site is well worth it.
It was fabulous. I don't have enough adjectives to describe what you'll see and experience there. If you're someone who travels a lot, or if you're someone who goes to many ski resorts, you might think, oh, it's just a ski resort. But Girdwood is a beautiful place, and there's a wonderful gondola that takes you all the way to the top of the ski resort. But when you get off, it is just captivating. It's so expansive. I think that's probably the word you're going to hear us use a lot. Alaska is expansive. Everything you've seen anywhere else is just bigger and bolder and colder. But there's just something about it that walking off that gondola and looking around at so much nature in its, I can't describe it.
Absolute grandeur. And that particular point at the top of the gondola at Girdwood, it's almost like you've stepped into the scene of The Sound of Music. The landscape is just absolutely incredible. So we definitely recommend it. It's not a full day trip by any means. It's only like a half day. So if you leave Anchorage in the morning, you get there around midday, late afternoon, do the trip up, and then don't miss going to the Double Muskie Inn. It's one of the best restaurants in that entire area. We certainly enjoyed our meal there.
And that's also what I want to stress about your Alaskan adventure. Talk to everyone you meet. Everyone is very friendly. You'll meet people from around the world, but the locals have a lot to add to your trip.
Very much so. And we went to Homer first. We made the trip all the way down to Homer, and we stayed at the KOA. But the big thing that you should do out of Homer is take the ferry over to Seldovia. It's a nice little ride, about 45 minutes or so across the bay to this tiny little quaint town. On the way, we had the most incredible experience with orcas coming literally right up on the side of the boat. And you can see that in our video that we saw that. But that was shot just with an iPhone, because my camera, it was in the bag still. I couldn't get it out. So I shot that with an iPhone, and that shows you how close the orcas were.
It was amazing, and I've been on many whale watch tours. I have never seen anything like this.
On the second day, we were able to get on a bush plane, the Sasquatch Alaskan Adventures. They have a bush plane that flies right out of Homer with the big Tundra tires on it, and they take you out and land in the middle of the Katmai Reserve on the beach, and then you wander through the water in your waders to get to the mainland, and there is just a serene silence out there, because there's nothing within 200 miles except for the Alaskan brown bear. And check out that video. We get really up close and personal to a few of the bear that were there the day that we were. And this one doesn't really like flying in small planes, but
this plane,
she's a trooper.
This plane is so small, I think it's the size of maybe your dining room table, okay? And I was nervous about that. And then, of course, I'm going to go to the middle of nowhere with a bear that was 50 yards away. And I will say that once I got over that initial fear of being in a small plane, and I saw so many cool landscapes, including a lake on top of a mountain, a snow-capped mountain.
That was actually a volcano.
Volcano.
Yeah.
Sorry, volcano.
Check the video. The volcano going over was fabulous. The pilots circled around that, and for you private pilots out there, the plane we were in was actually a Turbo 206. So if you know what that is, just a little 6-seater. We had 2 couples, 2 aircraft flew over at the same time, 1 pilot, 2 couples on each, total of 10 people. But it was really, really something that you need to experience if you're in that area. We just absolutely loved it. And when we got back, what was scarier?
I thought the plane ride was going to be scarier, but I think when you're in the wild with bears, literally 50 yards away,
Yeah.
you realize, wow, maybe that's scarier, because nature is different than the pilot. So it was a really, really cool adventure. It probably was one of the most thrilling things we did.
Oh, absolutely.
It was thrilling in so
Highly
many ways.
recommend it.
Yeah, and he loved it. I mean,
It was great.
That was something he really wanted to do. So put your fears to rest, but do it. It's super cool.
So after we completed that, we left and went to Seward. And up in Seward, different landscape, beautiful, beautiful town. Home of the Iditarod, the start of the race is there. They have a museum and a sculpture to that effect. But out of Seward, the thing that you really want to do is the Kenai Fjords tours. And we got on that tour. We did the long one, which is basically 6 hours. It's pretty much all day. And you get up to the Northwest Glacier.
That was my thing that I most wanted to do. And I will tell you that it was wonderful. I recommend everyone do that glacier tour. To be there and see your science books come alive. And to just be, first of all, that close to this massive glacier. Right there is perfect. But then, when you see it calving.
There was a chunk in the video, if you watch that video, the video cannot capture, number one, the sound that is coming through on that, but the size of the chunk of ice that fell off is as big or bigger than an F-150. And you imagine that just crashing into the water. The sound is phenomenal. Highly recommend that you take the Kenai Fjords tours. And they have several different tours. You can look them up online, but we did the one out to the Northwest Glacier. And on the way, you see the sea lions, you see orcas along the way, and it was just an absolutely fantastic trip. Highly recommend that.
It's worth every penny. It's worth your time.
And before you leave Seward, you have to check out the Exit Glacier. And she really enjoyed this.
Loved it.
It was a great hike. It wasn't too strenuous. It was an elevation change. Everybody wants to see Denali. Now, here's the thing about Denali. You have about a 30% chance of actually seeing Denali while you're there. But we had a leap of faith. We drove the RV up there, and during the day, it's a lovely, lovely little town set on the river. And Deb arranged a river float ride for us, and there's no big rapids or anything else. It's just a gentle little float along the river. And had we been able to see Denali, we would have had some tremendous photos. But
So we basically had a nice little float, raft ride, but there was not Denali in the background.
No.
So we made the best of it, and when we were done, we grabbed a beer at the Denali Brewing Company. We walked around the town, which is just funky and cool at the same time. But no matter what you do, whether you go to Denali or not, we'd recommend a stop at Talkeetna.
Absolutely. And while we were there, the RV place that we stayed at was the RV and Boat Launch. Now that's literally, we had a camping space right on the river, a little fire pit, and I'll put some pictures up of that. It was just an absolutely picturesque place for glamping, if you will. And she even enjoyed that campsite quite a bit. So.
I did. It was great.
Yeah.
And again, I'm not the camper kind of girl, but it was nice to be in these campsites that were both beautiful, easy to set up our RV station, and I loved the fact they all had a clubhouse, so you could, you had provisions there, and you had great bathrooms.
Right.
So I think I did pretty well in this RV adventure.
So we went all the way up there, and we did not see Denali. But we went back to Anchorage and stayed with our friends. And from their home, which is up on a mountain outside of Anchorage, we woke up one morning, two days later, I believe it was, and Scott said, "Hey, Deb, hey, Den, come here." And we looked out his window, and far in the distance, you could see Denali from his house in Anchorage. And he's like, "If you guys want to go and see it, you got to go now." So what did we do?
We hit the road. We got back in our camper and went to see Denali. Now, we didn't go all the way to Denali. We went back to Talkeetna and got the photo out. So yes, it was a 2-hour drive or so there and a 2 hour or so back. But when are you going to get?
When you know it's out, you need to go. And on the way in, there's this highway that comes down like this, and it's up in the distance. And there is a parking space off the side. It's the main highway going into Talkeetna. You're not going to miss it. And you can park there in the rest area, and you can see it in the background, take fantastic pictures there. But we continued on into town. But when we got back down to the same exact river that we were floating on 2 days prior and saw nothing, in the background,
there was Denali.
Wow.
So,
and well worth the trip.
Yes. So, we drove a lot, but, when can you get this photo out to last a lifetime, and then tell you about it here on YouTube? And so the purpose of this video today is explaining to you some top 7 to 10 things we did that did in fact give us the very best of the Inside Passage. That's
exactly
key.
If you're going to the Kenai Peninsula, these are the highlights that we would recommend. The RV, I know a lot of questions are going to come up about that. It's about $1,500 for the week, but in my opinion, well worth it. And it gives you the flexibility, as our host Scott told us, if the weather's moving in down at Homer, go to Seward first, or vice versa. Or if the weather's down south, go to Talkeetna first. The RV gives you the ability to move away from the weather while you're there. If you have set hotel rooms, well, I guess you're going to have to change those or whatever.
I think also, as I said earlier, that I've never been camping. I'm not somebody who, was looking forward to going on the RV. But he's right. It gave us the ultimate freedom to either stay longer in an area that we really loved, to do one more activity, or maybe we had our fill of one area and we just took off. And in taking off, allowed us to do some things that maybe were not in our itinerary. All right, we spoke to a local who recommended something cool to do, and boom, we just took off. We didn't have a care in the world as far as having to get to a hotel by a certain time. The one thing about Alaska, you can almost pull over anywhere and camp.
It's true. It's
cool.
An open state, which is not like Florida. In Florida, where we live, you can get a ticket or told to move in the middle of the night or whatever. Alaska, you can just pull that RV over and boondock for the night. So it's really, in my opinion, a really good way to experience Alaska.
So one of our next adventures took place rather spontaneously. We had thought about it, but it wasn't really part of our trip itinerary. It wasn't really baked in, and that was Whittier.
Whittier was fantastic. You have to go through a tunnel to get there, and you'll see that in the video. We did a video on that, and you can hike up to see the Portage Pass. There's a glacier up at the top. Phenomenal place. While you're there, of course, halibut is, the fish of that area. And if you go out to the inn, they have one of the best halibut dishes that you'll find anywhere on the Kenai Peninsula.
We ate halibut everywhere. I mean, we stopped halibut, and that was the best halibut. Everyone told us it was going to be the best halibut, and it was.
Yeah, no doubt.
And we did a hike up the Portage Passage, and that was a more strenuous hike, but the payoff was incredible.
Yeah, once you got to the top, just seeing the pool that was there, and the dogs would get in the pool, and in the distance you had another glacier off to the side. It was just absolutely fantastic.
Incredible views at the top of that hike. And again, it's a little bit more strenuous than the exit glacier. I would say that Whittier was probably my biggest surprise because I wasn't quite sure if we wanted to do it or not. And I just was captivated by it. I thought the hike was awesome. The views were spectacular.
And then afterwards, you get the halibut over at the Anchor Inn. After that, you go to the inn at Whittier. It's right down on the marina with just a gorgeous view of the mountains in the background. Get a cocktail there before you head home. We had a designated driver, so that wasn't an issue. But
And it's funny, people, I'm sure you've watched other videos by now, or if you haven't, you will. I think people will tell you that most of the town, 80% of the people in the town live in one condo.
One.
I know, crazy, right? I mean, you can barely live on your block with a bunch of neighbors, and the whole town, 80% in one building.
So those are some of the highlights that we experienced on our trip. If you have any questions, please, ask, put them in the comments, and we'll try to get back to every single one of those to help out, because we watched a lot of videos before we made our trip and we plotted out our itinerary, and I'm sure a lot of you are trying to do that right now. And if you've never been there, you're trying to anticipate what is going to happen and what's going to be the best course of action, what's the best route, everything else. But that was a synopsis of our trip. We hope that helps. So please, load up the comments and we'll try to answer as many questions as we can. And again, I'm Den.
I'm Deb.
Together we are D2 Destinations. We'll see you next time.
Please remember to like and subscribe so we can bring you more video.